welcome to AZ in the Circle, Arizona Softball Podcast, where we like to shine a light on talented, hardworking high school and college players and coaches in and from the 48th state. And here with us today is Coach Brent Rincon. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for being out here. And I got 4 topics we want to discuss with you. And we'll keep it simple. We're going to recap what an awesome year you're having in 2024. You got a lot of stuff going on I want to get into. And then you've seen, and second topic is you've seen a lot of ballers go from high school to college. What's the one thing student athletes share in common, no matter what level they go to, whether it's D1, whether it's NAIA, whether it's JUCO, whether it's D3, whether it's D2, there has to be some common traits. And then thirdly, hey, you coached at the D1 level, at the junior college level, high school level, the club level, the professional level. What's some of the traits, characteristics you look for when you're recruiting high school athletes? If you got one offer left, and they both talented, they're both the same. What separates them? And then lastly, what's the keys to your success? So I want to keep it to the point. I don't want to ramble too much. I know your time's valuable. So thank you for coming out here to Gilbert, to our 1010 studios. And okay, let's get going. Recap what an awesome year of softball it's been so far for you in 2024. It started the way most of the last dozen or so years have been going, with instructional lessons. Tell me about that.
I'm real fortunate. I provide hitting instruction to kids all over the Phoenix area, and been very fortunate to have a lot of parents trust me with their kids' journey in the softball world and their journey as a hitter. They don't realize it, but I probably learned more from them than they learned from me. And it's just been a blessing to have the opportunity on a daily basis to work with kids who are trying to get better, who are committed to their craft, and with the desire to continue to play. So,
and I'm sure, as you give them lessons and you get to know them, you start to sprinkle in your suggestions or your advice, and you find out what gets the kid motivated, and you kind of build a great relationship with them.
Yeah, the relationship's always a big key. I tell people, when you're in an instructional setting or even a coaching setting, trust is by far, without question, the biggest piece of that. Because as time goes on, you're starting to see chinks in each other's armor a little bit. So I was telling somebody the other day, now that we get so much instruction, but now I'm part psychologist also. As they go up the ladder and the heartbreak starts to happen and the big successes happen, you're having to manage both of those. And so now we're starting to have a lot of conversations, while we're hitting, of course, about how to manage success, manage failure, because that's really the key in the end, is who can manage it all. So
they're probably excited, or let me see the right word. They're looking forward to their next lesson, because they might have something on their mind besides, hey, Paul stays on playing through the strike zone.
I hope so. Yeah, we call it, we use the Spanish word for it, chisme. That we have, what's going to happen today, because they always got something to tell me about school or how things are going at home, and then we get back to work. But we try to incorporate it, because it is real life, and all of those things can affect our performance on the field. It's just not all softball in life. There's other factors and things that regulate us. And so sometimes I tell them, this is your happy place. This is quiet here. This is a place to block out all of the external things that might be positive or negative. And we're going to work really specifically on these things. And then when we're picking up balls, that's when we joke a little bit. I give them a hard time. They like to give me a hard time as well, because it's all kind of part of that relationship and continuing to build that trust. And the challenge is, as they continue to get better, I have to stay on top of my game to keep things fresh and to keep them progressing on the continuum of improvement. And that's really the key. Real easy with a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, right? We're teaching just dead basics. But as they start to progress down the continuum and pitches get more rapid, or location starts to change, or failure starts to happen more often, now we're on to some real hard stuff and deeper conversations. And
hey, what's your
so on.
Batting plan?
What's your plan?
Your 0-0 approach? What's your 1-1 approach?
Right.
Your 2-1 approach?
All of the above. Yeah. All of the above. And by the way, I had a bad day at school yesterday. And how do we manage that? So all of the above. So that's the greatest part of the whole thing. Lessons are a great vehicle. So for me.
Awesome. And then you coached in Mexico, so professionally. So I'd love to hear how that came about. Can you expand on that, please?
Yeah, this Mexico experience, a lot of people don't realize it here in the States, but Mexico created a professional softball league, and they put it together fast. It was probably about a 6 or 8 month process, which I knew nothing about. The league was getting ready to start. It was owned by the Mexican Professional Baseball League. For those folks that don't realize, there's a really strong history of professional baseball in Mexico. They play 2 seasons, a winter and a summer season. And those owners got together and said, let's start a professional softball league. So 6 owners did it. So it was a 6-team league. It came together very rapidly with financing. They had like a showcase and created a draft and an order, and they hired coaches. And I was rare. I was one of 2 U.S. born coaches there in Mexico. How I got the job was really pretty interesting too. I was doing a lesson, don't remember when or where, and a gentleman was watching the lesson. He was a friend of the father of the young lady that was getting the lesson. It turns out, fast forward a couple years later, he remembers my lesson, and when they were looking for a hitting coach at the team in Veracruz, Mexico, wow, he remembered me and said, this guy would be the perfect guy.
To go hang out by the beach in Veracruz, Mexico.
Yeah, not a bad gig, by the way. Yeah, not a bad gig. And it's the craziest thing ever. So I get this call. I don't know him. He just reminds me that I had met him at a batting cage and I'd seen him at a field, and that he worked in professional baseball and along with Mexico's professional baseball league, and asked me if I wanted to go to Mexico. The whole conversation took about 4 days. I talked it over with my wife. I said, I'm retired. I can go to Mexico for 5 weeks. Only a 5-week season. Yeah. And no joke, 4 days later, I'm on a plane was on a plane to Jalisco to Guadalajara because that's where they were playing in an away game. And I just showed up that day and started that day. Got off the plane at 2 and was throwing batting practice by 5.
So Mexico, Jalisco is here, and Veracruz is across
the country.
Were you guys busing or flying?
No, actually, the league was really strong financially. We did bus on occasion, but for the most part, we flew 2 different Mexican airlines, Viva Airlines, and I can't think of the other one, but we did fly, and buses to and from the airport, and then flights to the host city, and nice hotels. We were pretty well cared for with flights and food, and our hotels were top notch.
And then you were bilingual?
Well, that's a key funny story. They asked me when I took the job, you speak Spanish, right? And I said, well, of course I do.
You're like, those are business.
Yeah, of course I do. And then I got down there, and you realize how rapidly you actually don't. And then, kind of contrary, I think there's 31 states in Mexico, if I'm not mistaken. And even girls from different states in Mexico, dialects are different words, phrases. And then we had girls from the Cuban national team on our team as well. 2 girls from Cuba, outstanding players, by the way. Older girls in their 30s, and young women. So the Spanish was difficult. There was only one English speaker on the team, so she was my translator. I got a lot better because coaching's coaching once you get the key phrases.
It's got to be an international language of softball, right?
Hitting's an international language, okay. Right? Once I learned words like how do you say this, how do you say that, then it just became. And then over time, they wanted to practice English. I wanted to practice Spanish. They wanted to practice English. And I'd say things in Spanish, and they'd all giggle, and they'd say things in English, and I'd giggle. But it was a very professional league. The players were outstanding, very dedicated young ladies. It was made up of all the players. All the players were from Mexico, with the exception of one girl from the States. She played at St. Mary's University in California. Very good player, Alejandra Casas. Great resource.
The Gales?
Yeah. No, are they the Gales? Yeah, I think they are the Gales. Yeah.
North.
Yeah, in the north of LA. And just a great human being. She was our catcher, English speaking, kind of the face of the program, one of the 2 faces. And then the 2 Cubans, and nobody can understand their Spanish. You can just leave it in. Yeah, it didn't matter what they said. Everybody just looked at each other.
Really
just play. They could really play. And then we did have a young lady from Mexico City, Danny Leal, who was an All-American at Baylor in the early 2000s. So Danny was about 35 years old and still playing competitively, and she was our second baseman. And I wish more girls could see her preparation, because if you think it's hard to get your body ready to play at 18, try it at 35. And she was the consummate professional in taking care of her body, eating right, pre-game treatment, post-game treatment. And she was a professional woman. She was an executive for the New Era Hat Company in Mexico, which is a very large company in Mexico. They do all the uniforms for the Mexican teams. Okay. And she was a high-level executive and still found time to play. They made it available for her to play. But I learned a lot from her about preparation and taking care of your body and adjustments, and very fascinating to talk to.
Something that you could pass on to the younger
100%.
ballers.
Yeah, 100%. And she was just a wonderful human being. But that was a great experience. It was a 24-game schedule only, and then the playoffs. We were fortunate to make the playoffs. It was 1 versus 4. We were the 4 seed. The Sultanas from Monterey were the 1 seed. We took them to 3 games. They beat us late. We gave up a 3-run home run to lose to play for the championship.
Best out of 3?
Yeah, 2 out of 3.
Okay.
They called it a Serie de Reina, right? The series of the queens.
Yep.
And we got beat late in the game, and then I flew home. But a tremendous experience. I would love the opportunity to go back.
Is that something that hey, they had success with? They had enough fans show up?
Yeah, I wish I could share the fan situation. There was a night in Tabasco, the Olmecas, I believe. We drew 10,000 people at their stadium. At home games for us, anywhere between 1,500 and 3,000 every night. And then depending on the city, on a Friday night or a Saturday night, you could get as many as 5 to 7. I think the high water mark was 14,000 people came to a game. It was very well. The Mexican fan base, it's very territorial there. So if you're representing their town, their state, like in our place, Veracruz, the people from Veracruz come out and support the girls, the young women, the coaching staff, and the players. And it's a very festive. If you haven't been a part of Mexican baseball or any Latin country for that matter, Latin baseball or Latin softball, it's much different. The games are very festive. There's music playing.
Like a soccer environment.
Oh,
they're making noise,
right.
And they're playing music, and it's
all day.
Like a football game, really.
There's cheerleaders on the field. There's mascot races. It is an entertaining night that is life-changing for me. I'm very serious on the field, and it was life-changing because I had to lighten up a little bit. And a game.
Coach Loose.
Yeah, a game would end, and I'm already preparing for the next game with my little note cards, and they're yelling at me to get in the clubhouse. We're having a party in the clubhouse. And remember, we're dealing with adults.
Yep.
These were not, high school or college girls. There's women who had children of their own on the team. And so it's pretty festive after the game. Yeah, it was a professional environment. And
don't you think it's a great time to, I mean, you've been in softball a long time, not so much me, but a great time to be in softball. The game is exploding around the world with the Olympics hosting in LA, with softball being back in it, with the Women's College World Series having
tremendous.
More viewerships than the Men's College World Series. What's happening in women's sports just across the board. I think it's an amazing time around the world to be in softball.
Yeah, I think it's a great time to be a female athlete right now. I'm a father of daughters, so I've always kind of been a girl dad, and both of my daughters were collegiate athletes in swimming. But this softball has taken off, and I think it took some people by surprise. I think we can thank the talent of the girls and ESPN, of course, who've done a wonderful job. It's a high-revenue sport now. Stadiums are getting better. Coaches are making more money. There's more opportunities for girls. You look at Arizona. When I was coming up early in the club world, we might have had 8 or 10 clubs in Phoenix. There's 8 or 10 clubs every 20 square miles now. Yep. And the game's changed dramatically, but it's certainly a much more exciting game. The ball and bat have changed the game. I'm from originally what we call the white ball era. The ball was white. The bats were dead. It's a whole different game. And then the yellow ball came out. It's a liver ball. And then all the technology that goes into the bats. It's made it a more fun game. It's a more hitter-centric game instead of a pitcher-centric game, which I think brought viewership. And the girls are better athletes. We're seeing better athletes being trained better earlier. And really, it's the opportunity to hopefully go to college and change the world, right? And that's really what we should be in it for, right?
That's the pinnacle now. The pinnacle right now. They're not like they're going to it's great they play pro ball, but until they make pro ball money. Like So the pinnacle is, getting that education. And you're right, changing the world.
And a really interesting side bit to that is using Mexico as an example. Obviously, the girls in Mexico do not have the opportunity to play collegiately in Mexico. So this league was a wonderful thing, but we did a wonderful job in our team. I didn't do it. Our staff did, our general manager. Our outreach in the community in Veracruz was phenomenal. Every day, girls from our team were either at schools or in shopping centers, promoting, sharing, not just to get people in the stands, but they were an integral part of the community there in Veracruz. And we were very well supported by the fan base there. And I think we see the same thing in colleges here. It's a great world. Softball's given me so much. My life has been so greatly enhanced, and I hope I can do the same for others. But it's a win-win right now. It's a win-win for everybody involved.
And then doing all that, then you started to say, well, someone came to you. You can tell me a story. You're part of a new club organization, Arizona Rising. Explain how that came about, because that looks like it's very well put together, and you got tremendous coaches right? And then when you have tremendous coaches and you have a smart business plan, it's a win-win for everybody involved.
Sure.
And you guys have had a big turnout. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure, it's kind of interesting. I'm not really the anti-club guy, but I kind of, the model we use. There's some positives obviously, and there's always negatives in everything. And I'm just minding my own business. And a gentleman who I don't know that well, Eli Guinness, who's a very good softball coach and probably one of the great people in the game of softball who can help girls get connected to colleges. He's phenomenal at that. He reached out one day and he said, "Hey, I'm thinking about starting a team." And I said, "Oh, okay." It didn't mean much to me. And he said, "Well, I'd like you to help me." And it's a very fleeting conversation. I'm like, "Oh yeah, sure. I'll be happy I'll do whatever you need me to do." But I didn't know at the time. Well, then it started picking up steam. And then he started talking about this Arizona Rising organization, a new organization that kind of had a different, maybe not a different model, but a model of their own with some quality people who had been established coaches in Arizona. And it kind of piqued my interest and opportunity. You hear all these folks' names, these coaches that coach these national teams, and they were all part of Rising. I said, "Yeah, I think I'm on board." And that's kind of how it got started. So we're actually going to have our first practice. Securing players was a little more difficult than I thought. I don't get into the competitiveness between the clubs. I always say that's for the club organizations to figure out.
But when whoever shows up.
Yeah, kind of, right? Yeah, you would like to hope. But because I've been pretty pro every organization, I'm always appreciative of all of the organizations, because remember, the coaches are oftentimes volunteering their time, giving girls opportunities to play, and so it's really hard to ever get too upset at any of the women or men that are either coaching or being part of a team, whether it be somebody doing the stats or collecting the money or making the reservations for hotels. It's pretty selfless on their part. And I think that's wonderful. So we're just a different organization, Arizona Rising. It's a great brand. Excited to be a part of it on the ground level. The names that are behind it are the names of Arizona softball. And I'm happy they chose me and give me the opportunity to be a part of it, and looking forward to see where this takes off to.
Yeah, great. Well, you'll know soon enough.
Yes,
with fall
it's
ball.
happening. Yes, Saturday morning, first practice.
All right. Well, good luck with that, Coach. And then our next topic here. Well, all along you continue to develop student athletes through your instructional lessons. That's going to continue?
Yes, I'll continue to do lessons with kids from any club.
Okay, good. And the second question before we go to break here is, you have seen many ballers go from high school to college. It's a good transition here. But what's the one thing that most student athletes share in common that do make it to the next level? And when I say next level, I'm not just talking D1. It could be NAIA, JUCO, D2, D3. Because at the end of the day, you're in a small percentage of people. I think it might be 7% of all the softball players in the country that make it to all those levels added up together. So what's some of the common things you see that of the kids that do go on?
Yeah, and I don't want to touch on the levels. I think it's an honor to play at any level. The 7%, I think, is the exact number. What they say, get a chance to play beyond high school. And I think any young lady or young man that goes on to play at any level beyond high school should relish that opportunity and understand that they're a very select few. And that's very close and dear to my heart, because I did have the opportunity to coach junior college softball in Arizona for a season as well, and wonderful situation. Going back to what traits do I think kids have? I think the kids that have the most success or get the opportunity when it's recognized, two things. One is competitiveness, innately competitive. And that means doing things when nobody's watching. It's not just hitting when you're at practice. It's doing things on your own and being competitive with yourself and others. And the second thing is curiosity. I think it's okay to just play and practice when you're young, but as you move down that continuum, 14U, 15, 16 years old, 17, even into 18U, you're going to have to start to develop some curiosity about how the game's played, what works best for you, having a keener understanding of mechanics, whether it be throwing, fielding, hitting, also strategy in the game and IQ. So those two things, innate competitiveness that says, I'm not going to let you beat me today. I've worked too hard for this. And then the second part is the curiosity to broaden your horizons about the game. I always say kids should know what every kid on the field does. If there's a bunt play on, if you're the catcher, you should know what the right fielder's supposed to do. The right fielder should know what the third baseman's supposed to do. Just part of being part of the game. That's your business. Be an expert at your business.
That's your craft.
Yeah, it's your craft. So those are the two things: innately competitive, not just against others, but with yourself. And then the curiosity part's huge.
Super. Thank you for sharing that.
Yep.
And now a word from our title sponsor, Polaris PT out of Queen Creek Physical Therapy. They're doing great things for student athletes.
At Polaris PT and Wellness, we believe that movement is medicine. We believe that as an athlete, you should be performing at the highest level. And so we deliver performance-driven solutions to get you back out onto the field faster. So give us a call at 480-808-4995 or reach out to us through our website, www.polarisptphx.com, where movement is medicine.
And now we're back. Thank you, Brick, with Polaris PT. Okay, last two questions, last two topics. You've coached at the D1 level, the junior college level, the high school level, the club level, the professional level. That's pretty awesome. The traits, characteristics, kind of what we asked last time, but I'm gonna make it a little harder for you. You look for when recruiting high school student athletes to go to the next level. And let's say they're both competitive, like you talked about, and they both have a high IQ, which they should if they're getting recruited to the next level. And they're both talented, and you only got one offer left, and you're at your 24th, you're at 24th roster spot. You only have one spot left because the new NCAA rules, they can have 25 roster of 25 ballers. So what's going to determine the difference? What's the next parameter you look for the box to check?
Yeah, I think probably watching to see how they react. A couple things: when they fail, make an error, strike out, pop up. How's their body language? Body language is a big indicator. The second thing is, and this is, I'll chuckle when I say it, but the game ends and the coach is doing the meeting down the left field line. I always watch the players of how they're reacting to how the coach is speaking. Kids that are looking at the coach versus kids that are not looking at the coach. Their body language when being instructed or being spoken to. Body language is a big piece, because if you recruit them to a college, you're going to be with them, minimum 1 year and maybe 4.
And your job could be on the line.
And for some of those folks that are making the money they're making at the big schools, you can't afford to have a kid come in and change a good culture, because one kid could ruin a culture. And so you're looking at body language, coachability, and sometimes you got to be real observant. I call it kind of trained observation, right? Where you're looking for something. I want to see how I know you're going to be happy when you hit a ball in the gap and stand on second base and flex. I want to know when the bases are loaded and you pop up to the pitcher because you got jammed on a 2-0 count. What's your reaction? How do you handle that? And we want to see a little emotion, of course, but how you handle that. And another piece that sometimes people don't realize is, I want to see how you interact with your parents. Because you see the parents at the club games a lot. I want to know who your parents are too. And then sometimes I think now, because the money's such a big a deal, I think a lot more college coaches are asking a lot more questions. The college coach can assess the player's ability. But now we should start networking. Hey, how's the kid at school? How are they in the weight room? How are they with their parents, right? Things like that, because those are all telltale signs. And if you're going to invest sizable amounts of money in a young lady to play collegiate softball, you better have all the ducks in order to make sure that you're making a good, sound investment that's going to enhance your program. So,
wow, those are some golden nuggets, and worth rewatching, because you can, if you're on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, you can rewind that thing. Okay, after you like it and subscribe, you can actually rewind it and watch it as many times as you want for that stuff that you just said there. Because everyone, you're right, talented. You're right. When things go well, of course they're celebrating. They better be celebrating. They better be enthusiastic.
Sure.
Yeah. And then, but when they don't, that's when you really learn a lot. How do they handle it? Right. That's good. Okay. And then the last thing. Obviously, you're a super successful coach. You don't get to be in softball this long and coach at the levels you've coached at and be asked to coach a professional softball team because somebody saw you do a lesson 2 years before. You didn't even know who they were.
Very unusual.
But they remembered you, so you were just being consistent with your teachings. Okay, so you have to have some kind of traits, some kind of characteristics yourself that you think have been keys to your success. Would you be great if you could share them with us?
Okay. I think I use the same word, curiosity. When I was a young coach, I started out as a high school baseball coach, and a gentleman asked me to come over and help with softball. And I just fell in love with the game. My mom had played. A lot of times the girls don't realize this game was big even in the 50s. And my mom was a very accomplished player in Arizona in the 50s. And so I kind of knew about the game. But I got real fortunate. I was very curious, and I kind of said I want to become a really, really good coach. And at that time, Coach Candrea at U of A was winning national championships. And even though I don't know Mike very well, I do know Mike a little bit. He was like the legend. And so we had opportunities to go down there and listen to him. And he had a video series out on VHS tapes. And I used to laugh. I said, every college coach in the country has Coach Candrea's VHS tapes. Yeah. And then I got the opportunity. So even though I don't know Mike that well, I consider Mike a mentor. He changed the game. He's a great teacher of the game. Not just a great strategist and technician, but a great teacher of the game. Then later on, I got the opportunity to not only work with Clint Myers when he was at ASU, but to work many camps with him. He's a complete savant in softball. Him and Coach Candrea are very similar. These guys know the game. They can teach the game. They're passionate about the game, and they really care about the young ladies that play the sport for them. Along those lines, when I got to the University of Oregon, Rick Gamez, who's actually, ironically, another tremendous coach who no longer coaches, he played high school baseball for Coach Myers and was Candrea's assistant at one time. So my coaching line, I don't want to take credit for that coaching line, but I feel very blessed that from Coach Candrea to Coach Myers, and I'm definitely not comparing myself to those guys, but from Coach Candrea to Coach Myers to Coach Gamez, I've got to share, I got to have experiences and be exposed to teaching methodologies that have kept it fresh, and I've never lost my desire to keep learning. And then I was very fortunate. Ann Pearson, former coach at GCU, now the Queen Creek head softball coach, is a very good friend of mine, and I've learned tons from her. So my coaching tree, I just those four folks have meant so much to me, and have instilled in me the responsibility I have to provide a good experience and a knowledgeable experience when working with young players to get them better.
So curiosity, knowledge, some of your keys to your success. Any other one?
I hope my passion comes out. I really do love the game of softball and what it can do, not just for me, but for others. I want them to get the opportunity to share that. And I like when we get to improve our lot in life because of softball. It's a game-changing, life-changing opportunity. Failure, success, elation, devastation. You get to learn a lot about yourself, other people. And the game's been a blessing to me. And hopefully I can share my experiences and keep kids excited about playing and wanting to continue to get better on their own journey.
Yeah, that's incredible. Curiosity, knowledge, and passion. I think, I call it as a coach, I call it, enthusiasm, but that's what it is. It's passion. Mm-hmm. It's coach speech for heart. Play with your heart. Right. So that's great. Thank you for sharing all those nuggets. I appreciate you coming on the show. Javier with AZ in the Circle, Arizona Softball Podcast. If you liked what you saw, please subscribe, tell your friends about it, and we'll be sharing many, many more stories this second season of ours, where we were fortunate to do 22 episodes the first season, and we're looking to go 25 episodes this season. So, Coach Rincon, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Great job.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you.